Valve just released the 20th anniversary update for Half-Life 2, and right from the main menu, you can see something has changed. The text is very small for some reason, I'm not sure why. The major update is that now you'll notice episode 1 and 2 are gone from your Steam library because they're now part of the base game. So there's one executable which has all 3 games in them, and even Lost Coast. Also, they added in the workshop. You can subscribe to add-ons, maps, weapon skins, campaigns and whatnot, and they'll show up here. Next, they also added like 3.5 hours of commentary for the whole game, similar to Lost Coast. Now the whole game has developer commentary, so you can learn more about the game from the developers themselves, which is a really nice addition. So let's get started and see if we can spot the differences.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine.
Okay, and one of the update in the patch notes I remember reading was that they added back the glint in G-Man's eye, which was kind of visible there. So that's cool.
See you get on.
But we'll be going through the patch notes in detail, but first let's check out the game itself. From the get-go you might think that there's nothing different now, but actually the shadow map resolution has been increased, so these shadows are a little bit nicer looking now than before. But we'll be looking at each of these updates in detail in a bit, while I let this gameplay footage play in the background. Okay, while Gameplay Rad plays Half-Life 2, here's Patch Note Rad, and we'll be going through the patch notes. So starting off, like I said before, they combined episode 1 and 2 into a single executable. So you just launch Half-Life 2 and boom, you got 3 games now. They also added developers commentary, similar to how they had in Lost Coast. They also added workshop support, which is gonna be confusing if I'm honest, cause there's like 20 years worth of mods and skins and scripts and whatnot on the internet, and you know, moving all of that into the workshop is gonna be tricky. Plus, there's also the problem that the Doom community faced where other people started uploading mods made by somebody else, so that's kinda not good. But it's still a pretty neat thing to have for Half-Life 2. And of course, bug fixes and new graphics options, and they detailed these down below, so we'll be looking at that as well. And also I mentioned they uploaded a bunch of videos. One of them is a documentary which is 2 hours long. I haven't seen all of it, but they do show episode 3, or at least beta footage of episode 3 in that, so that's kind of cool. Plus they also uploaded Half-Life 2 beta videos, which we'll be looking at the end. The book they published way back in the day, Raising the Bar, they're republishing that with the expanded 2nd edition, and basically that'll have never seen before art from episode 1 and 2 and the ideas and experiments for the 3rd episode, which is pretty cool. So this will be a physical release, I think, so that's gonna be great to have as well. So about the developer commentary, it's about 3.5 hours long. That's a lot of yapping from Valve developers, but that's cool. They'll give you some insight about how the maps were made, how the gameplay was designed and stuff like that. So in rendering and graphics, they fixed a bunch of issues, like perhaps an entire maps to be fully bright or fully dark depending on the settings. They added bicubic filtering for light maps to produce smoother shadows. Basically, before, the shadows used to be a little blocky looking, but thanks to bicubic filtering, as you noticed, they're a lot smoother now. They added back in grass, which we saw in Water Hazard. So there's also something called classic effects, and I think they only affect blood and fire. So you can do that if you want to use the old style of blood and fire. Added support for radial fog. We noticed that in Highway 17 that now the map doesn't weirdly pop in the distance. It now looks much more smoother looking and it fades in much better. UI, they did a bunch of changes, but what I feel about that is that they made it look, I guess, newer, modern, and a little bit similar to Half-Life Alyx's UI. So, it's a bit of consistency between Half-Life 1, 2, and Half-Life Alyx now. The first change they listed for gameplay is that they reduced chances of birds getting stuck in the world. That actually did used to happen, where they would just keep flying into a building or a wall or a tree, or they would just keep spinning around on the ground. So I guess they fixed that. They also fixed some bugs regarding the sounds and music while you're playing the game, so that's cool. Also, you might have noticed that the brightness and the contrast was different in the gameplay footage. That's because they changed the HDR lighting, the tone mapping in every map, and they also did it for Half-Life 2 Deathmatch as well. They increased the light map resolution in most maps. What I'm guessing is that affects the shadows or the lighting. Basically, this whole update can be summarized by saying that what Half-Life 2 had already before, they just made it a little bit more better. They increased the resolutions of the light map, the shadow mapping, stuff like that. Removed the far Z clip plane for most maps. So you might remember, if you tried to make a big map in Hammer, the map would start to clip at a certain distance. Now that's fixed because they removed the far Z clip plane. And by the way, if I'm wrong about any of this, feel free to correct me in the comments down below. Improved lighting and world detail inconsistencies. I don't remember there being many, but if there were, they fixed that. Turned on fog and skyboxes for every map with water on the horizon for better horizon blending. So this mostly, I guess, affects the Highway 17 maps, because that has the water on one side. Replaced instances of simple reflective water with fully reflective water. So Half-Life 2 had different sort of waters in the game. In the city, they use a different type of water texture. In the coast, there's different. In Water Hazard, it's different. So I guess they replaced all of them, and now all maps use the best version of the water texture. Added glow sprites to all lights that were missing them. I can't believe they missed glow sprites in the original release, so now they added those back in. Enabled shadows on many static props. See, basically they just took the whole game and polished it even further. I mean, if it was shiny before, it's like super duper shiny now. There's a lot of specific map updates, Half-Life 2 Deathmatch fixes, Half-Life 2 Deathmatch maps updates, and this is, I think, one of the most important updates in this 20th anniversary update, and it's about Hammer, because they increased the limit for the BSP in a map. So basically what that means is, before, if you could add in like 1,000 models in a map, now you can add 2,000. And before, if you could do 8,000 brushes, that's been doubled. Same for text info, same for text data, disp info. Basically, they just beefed up the engine to support more stuff on screen. So that opens the gate for modders to cram in more stuff into a single map for a mod. And of course, this is important to note, a lot of the mods that came out before this anniversary update might not work anymore, so you'll have to go into the beta settings of the game on Steam and change it to Steam Legacy to run all those mods. So that's pretty much it that I wanted to talk about on the patch notes. Sure, there's a whole lot more that I missed out on, but definitely go through these. These are actually some of these are pretty funny, some of these are pretty interesting. But now, let's take a look at the most important part of this update, for me at least. So Valve uploaded 4 videos on their channel. One of them is the documentary, which is about 2 hours long. Definitely watch this one. Then there's the E3 2003 demo. This is not new. This was already public. But interestingly, they also uploaded the 2002 demo. Now if you didn't know, Valve was not at E3 2002. They were supposed to be, but they dipped out at the last minute. But the one that caught me off guard was the SIGGRAPH 2000 demo. Now if you don't know about the SIGGRAPH 2000 demo, that's the demo from where we got this screenshot of the free TV's map. This is the only screenshot we had of this demo, this presentation, because this was a private demonstration. But now they uploaded all of it to YouTube, and we'll be taking a look at that. Right from the get-go, you can see the UI is very similar to Half-Life 1. And if I'm not mistaken, the sky in this map, in this presentation, is, I think, Sky Herb 01. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments.
Get a TV! Get yourself a TV!
One of the things to note here is the explosion effects. Look at the car on the right side when it explodes. Like, you can see individual parts of it get blown off, and those have flame like particles animations to it. Now that's something that I've not seen in either game in like Half-Life 1 or 2, so I'm guessing that's like a feature or a visual effect that they didn't include in the final game. You'll also notice some newer animation, like not new, but animations you haven't seen before on these characters. And of course, there's the Metro Cop with the trench coat, like in its original form. The one we have is like a recreation, but this is the one that Valve made. And you can see these, and I noticed that this hand-to-hand combat sequence, it's like not scripted, but rather AI in a way that they're actually having a brawl, like they're punching and dodging and blocking. I don't know if they wanted to have a proper melee like system, fighting system in Half-Life 2, but that was interesting to see as well. Also, there's no ragdoll yet. Next is this sequence that they show about this tank that rolls into the city streets. Gordon's holding the SMG-1. There's no hand models yet. Also, the weapon sway is very different. It's not like Half-Life 1, it's not like Half-Life 2 either. It's just kinda different. Like it wobbles up and down. Again, the different explosion effects are interesting to see. Plus they got a whole lot of weapons in the weapon selection, but none of them have newer, like, they all use Half-Life 1 icons. Also, I think this is a very different RPG model. And here's Demo Arctic. Never did I ever imagine that one of my most favorite cut maps, well, this wasn't cut, this was a demonstration map to begin with, because this wasn't, was supposed to be in the campaign. But this was part of the SIGGRAPH demo. I never expected that. I almost, like, when they showed this in the video, I almost expected them to show a map of weather control or the Spire, but no, they don't show that. Now, I do feel like this isn't the same Demo Arctic map that we have in the Mega Build, the one that you and I can play ourselves, because the snow textures look a little bit different. The geometry, I feel, is a little different. The map feels a lot larger. This is a very, very eerie map, to be honest. With the wind and the sound of the bell. There's the Borealis to the left parked. Again, this wasn't supposed to be part of like the campaign. This wasn't going to this map was not going to show up in the storyline. Most likely, who knows, maybe they made this map for this specific presentation, or the SIGGRAPH demo. Also, you can notice here that the textures are either different, or because of the video compression, you can't see any red on the Borealis like you usually do. I think that's red on the side, like the bottom half of the ship is red, painted red, but it doesn't look like that. But this is such a vibe. Pure beta vibes. Absolutely dark and gritty. You know, just watching this video on Valve's own channel is kind of like a mythical experience in itself, and almost makes me wish they uploaded more of these demos and videos from, Half-Life 2's development, like from the Hyper era or from like 2001, or even, you know, old cut maps, like I mentioned before, maybe of Weather Control or the Spire. Next we have this section where they go through the terminal area. You don't see the Citadel in this version of the map. Again, the skybox is Skyherb01, most likely. A lot of this map is familiar, but the sky is different. The part where there's supposed to be the Citadel, now there's buildings. So I'm guessing this is most likely an older version of this map. Halfway through the video, they demonstrate the models for the game. First off, everybody's favorite cremator. Now, you gotta understand, for the year 2000, this was actually pretty impressive. Sure, the models might not be fully HD or have too many polygons, but the texture work and the lighting effects, like specular lighting, the bump mapping, little bit of it, that was absolutely revolutionary for the year 2000. For comparison, games like Max Payne came out in 2001, Metal Gear 2 came out in 2001. A lot of like graphically advanced games came out after like 2002 or 3. They were doing this in 2000. And this feels even more impressive when you look at Barney's or Alex's model. Because again, most game developers were not putting in this much details on their game characters. But in Half-Life 2, they had pretty much semi-realistic looking human models. Also, you can see the original Alex model, which is really interesting. Then we also get to see Odell. But again, the movement of the eyes, the expressions, the texture work, this is amazing if you think about it. And of course, there's Dr. Court, or Dr. Kleiner, or the CSS hostage, whatever you want to call him. Here's the Metro Cop with the trench coat. And they also show you the crab synth, which is really nice. There's that specular lighting or bump mapping or whatever it is. Again, this is really impressive for 2000. So yeah, definitely check these videos out, check the documentary out, the patch notes, the update on Half-Life 2. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and a big thanks to these benefactors for supporting the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.